Hi everyone. So it was unfortunate that we didn't get to have our lesson yesterday because of the lockdown, and so this is the reason why I am recording this lesson so you don't miss out on what the others have learned yesterday. Now, before I begin with the lesson, I would just like to make some important announcements. Okay, so just a few reminders for chapter 3. We do not have a chapter test, just a quiz. If you would remember, we already covered two topics from the day before. That cover solving systems by graphing and quadratic systems, and both of these pretty much use Desmos all throughout. Okay. Now the other topics under chapter 3 involves matrices, and so we will be talking in this video. We'll be talking about subtracting and adding matrices, and the same with multiplying matrices. And then next week, we will be looking at the fourth method of solving systems, and that is by the use of matrices. Now, the good thing about this three other topic, this is going to rely heavily on TI-84. Now, you would notice that for everything in chapter 3, this is mostly all calculator work. So hopefully you can find time to actually get some practice and get comfortable using both calculators for this chapter. And so we can expect that our chapter 3 quiz is going to be on Thursday, that's October 2, which will give us a work day or a time for you to be able to retake tests or quizzes during class time. So I am giving you that Friday, October 3rd, as a day for you to, if you would like to retake chapter 4 test. You don't need to schedule on a separate day. We can do it in class during the class period, okay? All right, so let's begin some topics for today. So as I have mentioned, we are going to cover some basics about matrices. So a matrix is actually a rectangular array or grid of numbers, symbols, or expressions, and they are arranged in rows and in columns. Now, we are all aware that mathematics has different branches. Like if you're talking about data, you got statistics. If you are talking about figures, you are looking at geometry. Now, matrix is under the branch that we call as linear algebra. Okay, so if you haven't seen a matrix, this is how your matrix looks like. So typically you have a square bracket, sometimes a big parenthesis as like a grouping symbol, but that's like the container in there. Now, each of these numbers that you are seeing are what we call as elements. So the elements are those individual numbers or sometimes expressions or symbols inside your matrix. Now, the dimension or the size of a matrix is determined by the number of rows and its columns, okay? So, for example, for this particular matrix, this is actually what we call as a 2 by 4 matrix. We always mention the rows first before the number of columns, all right? So when we have corresponding elements, so we're talking about these are the elements in two different matrices that are in the same position, all right? So we need to know about corresponding elements because this is the important block that we need to look at when we do our addition and subtraction of matrices, okay? So some reminders about adding and subtracting matrices. You can only add or subtract matrices with the same dimensions. So again, they should have the same, pretty much like the ideally is like they have the same shape. Okay, so you can only add a 2 by 4 matrix with another 2 by 4. You cannot add different sized matrix. Okay, and then pretty much this is direct. You add or subtract the corresponding elements. Now you might be wondering, how can you use the TI-84 when you are going to work with matrix? So again, everything from here on, everything on matrices, it's going to be dependent on the TI-84. Now for you to be able to activate or be able to insert matrix on the calculator, you need to activate the alpha and zoom button, because F3, if you take a look at that, F3 is your option to get your matrix. So let me show you how you can do that. All right. So let's get our TI-84 in here. So like I said, if you need to add your matrix, so what you do is you click alpha and then zoom. Okay, now you will need to use your arrow keys. It's just the up or down. Okay, just use the up or down to select your columns. Okay, so the number of rows, let's say you have a 3 by 3 matrix, so you will select 3 and then press enter, and you would know that the size or the correct dimension has been mentioned once it is in black already. Okay, so it depends on what you are given. Again, that is alpha zoom. Okay, let's go back to our presentation and see our example. All right, so let's start with addition and subtraction of matrices. So one thing you would notice, you would see that a matrix is named using a capital letter. So here in this problem, we have matrix C, which has these elements, and matrix D that has these elements. So we need to figure out what is C, matrix C plus D. So what we do is we enter this in our calculator. We enter the matrix and then use the plus button and then enter this second matrix into the calculator. So let's do that. So we need a 2 by 3 matrix. So we need to adjust. Okay, so once you have determined, just press OK. And you will see that the matrix is ready for you to type on. Now, when you type your matrices, simply press your number. So we have 3, and then go to the right button. Just click on the right button. The arrow or the cursor will move horizontally before it will move to the next row. All right. So in our example, it's 3, 2, and 4. I click again on the right. It will move to the next row. So -1 followed by 4 and 0. Okay. So to exit out of that matrix, just go back to the right. We need to add, so we have the plus sign. We add another matrix, so alpha zoom. It's still a 2 by 3, so we just click on OK. All right, so we enter our second matrix. It's actually 1, 4, 3. Okay, as you can see right now, it's a little bit tougher for me because I am clicking from a computer, but if you are using the handheld, you are more than welcome. I actually highly encourage that you use your texting thumbs, your texting fingers, because it will be way faster to do that. Okay, so once you have your equation, your expression set up, just click enter, and that is going to be the sum. So we have 4, 6, 7, -3, 6, and 4. Okay, so that's pretty much that. So let me just activate my pen here. So pretty much what happened with the calculator, if I am going to explain to you how the calculator actually worked it out, okay, is that it did the just added the same. So for example, this particular element is corresponding to this. So what you will get is simply 3 plus 1, which is 4, okay? -1 and -2 together, that would be -3, okay? So you are adding from the same positions. So this is 6, you got 7, and then this is 4, okay? So that is how it actually works by hand, all right? So again, you can try out the next example, which is a subtraction. So here, you have to do matrix D first, followed by a subtraction, and then matrix C. So you can use the same data, and then you can go ahead and try that out. And again, if you are going to do it by hand, so it's gonna be elements from D. So that's going to be 1 minus 3, which is -2. -2 minus 1 is -1. You will have 4 minus 2, that's another 2. 2 minus 4, that's a -2. 3 minus 4 over here, that is -1. And then 4 minus 0, which is 4. So you will see that this is going to be the difference between your two matrices. Okay, so let's proceed with the next part. So a matrix equation, so we know how we have been like solving for a value of a variable when you have an equation. So there could be some matrix equation that could be involved, and they could look something like this. Okay, so if you're going to analyze this particular problem, it looks like we have a certain matrix over here. Okay, and we need to add another matrix which we do not know, so that the answer when we add them is going to be this second matrix over here. Okay, so if you're going to think what should be this other matrix to be added to this first matrix, now if you don't realize that that's technically the scenario, you can always like represent your matrix with a number. Like you can rewrite this whole equation like in number form, wherein it's a lot easier and faster for you to work on them. Okay, so let's see here. So you can imagine this first matrix over here. The first matrix could be hold on, oh sorry. So let's say this is a number 3. So let's imagine that. Okay, so 3, this is a number 3 plus a certain missing number, and then it needs to be equal to 5. Okay, that's like the simplest way to represent it. So if you think about it, how are you going to solve for this missing number over here? Well, you have to undo this plus 3 and make sure that you subtract that, correct? So you subtract 3 means you have to subtract 3. So if you are going to go back to the idea of the matrix, for us to be able to solve for A, we need to subtract this bigger matrix. We will subtract that by this first matrix over here by 1, 3, 7, 0, 5, 8, 12, 9, -2. And you can use your calculator, plug in these values into your calculator, and your A is going to be equal to, all right, so A, the matrix A is going to be equal to 7, 11, -3. It's going to be -8, 0, -7, 3, -1, 10. Okay, so that is going to be that missing matrix that we need to add to this first matrix to get this matrix sum at the end. Okay, so that's addition and subtraction of matrices.